Welcome to our 5 on 5. We're pleased to welcome Chris Fick, a tax and finance analyst for the League of Oregon Cities. Chris, good to see you. Thanks
for having me on.
So tell us, first off, why are property taxes so important for Oregon cities?
Well, for the vast majority of Oregon cities, property taxes are our largest source of revenue. So we have a vested interest in making sure that Oregonians have faith and understanding in the property tax system. We look at the property tax system and sort of judge it by 3 criteria. Is it democratic, meaning do local voters have the ability to support the services that they value in their community? Is it understandable? Does the average person get their property tax bill and know where the money goes and why and how their taxes are assessed? And is it fair? Are owners with similarly valued properties being treated equally?
Mm-hmm. Do you believe there are areas in which our tax system falls short in Oregon?
I think it falls short in all 3 areas, and I'll give you a couple of examples. Wow. In terms of local control, voters, unfortunately, because of statewide tax caps, don't have the ability to support local services that they value. A lot of voters support local option levies. These are temporary measures limited to no more than 5 years in length. But because of statewide tax caps, the revenue that these voters support to send to their schools or police departments or parks aren't being collected. In Ashland, for example, voters approved a levy in 2010 with 71% of the vote for the school district there to support middle school and high school curriculum, counselors, and some extracurricular programs. But 35% of that, what voters approved, isn't collected because of these statewide tax caps. And we see this in school districts and in cities throughout the state: Pendleton, Portland, Tigard, Tualatin, Westland, Wilsonville.
Wow.
We see that voters' ability to support services that they value in their community doesn't exist because of these statewide caps.
Okay, so how can we make some of these changes? I mean, this sounds like this is quite common, clearly.
Yeah, it is. What we proposed last legislative session was empowering local voters to pass local option levies, these temporary measures, outside of statewide limits if they so chose. So if they want to support school funding or police and library services, they could do so for a limited amount of time. It continues to hold government accountable, and voters know if they are raising their taxes what the revenue is going to support, and that it's outside of these statewide tax caps.
Wow, interesting. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Much more with Chris in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Chris Fick from the League of Oregon Cities. So, Chris, we were talking about some examples in which you feel the tax system in Oregon falls short. We were talking, obviously, interestingly about school districts quite often, but what other areas do you see that?
Well, the other major area that's inequitable, we think, is that property taxes are largely based on your property's mid-1990s value. That's when we created this separate assessed or taxable value for tax purposes. And then that rate of growth is capped at 3% annually. So that gave property owners some assurances that their taxes weren't going to exceed 3% a year. But unfortunately, not all properties grow at 3% annually. We've seen properties grow at 3, 4, 5%, and then other properties grow at 6, 7, 8, 9%. So now the property taxes are out of whack with what their market value is today. And I'll give you an example from here in Medford. 2 properties sold about a year ago for $235,000. One is going to pay $4,300 in property taxes. The other is going to pay $2,300 in property taxes. So that's a $2,000 difference for similar services, similar school districts, and we don't think that that's very fair for property owners.
Yeah, and that clearly trickled down in the housing market.
Right. We just commissioned a report that the former state economist Tom Potowski put together that looked at school quality, proximity to downtown, walkability, a host of other measures, and tried to isolate what property taxes alone, how they're affecting the housing market. And he found that these unfair property tax levels are obviously driving the housing market. The winners in this circumstance are winners on multiple fronts. They get lower property taxes. They see their market values increase, and their services are subsidized by others. And the opposite is true for those that have higher property taxes and haven't seen their values rise as quickly.
Yeah, well, I'm sure everybody sitting at home loves what you're saying. What kind of timeline or how likely is it that we see changes in this area soon?
Well, we're working to educate Oregonians about the issue. We find both anecdotally when speaking to people and through polling and research that most people don't understand that they've tied their hands locally and can't support the services that they want to, and that they don't realize that taxes aren't recalibrated at the time of sale. Unlike other tax systems that limit property tax growth, we never recalibrate at the time of sale. So the favorable property tax treatment that we gave certain properties in the mid-1990s continues in perpetuity. And that's eye-opening for people, and people are more often willing to consider tweaks when they learn a little bit more information.
Absolutely. Okay, now League of Oregon Cities, you're based in Salem. What are you doing down here in Southern Oregon?
Well, we are speaking with a number of local groups and media as well, trying to get the word out there. We've got a great website with additional resources, www.orcities.org/tax reform. We've got a wealth of resources about where your tax dollars go, how the system we think could be improved, and a variety of other resources for people who are interested in learning about property taxes.
Very good, Chris. Great to meet you. Thanks for coming up. Appreciate
Likewise.
it.
Thank you.
All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back.